All right, recording in progress. Hey Abhishu, what's up?
Life, huh? How's it going, man? Been a while, right?
It's been what? It's been almost a year, I think. I don't
Yeah.
even know. Like I think the last time
We
we met
were,
was when Norris was about to win the Russian GP.
yeah.
I remember
Rest,
that. So
bruh, rest in peace, McLaren, man. Rest in peace, McLaren. Honestly,
yeah,
we really thought that McLaren would be doing better, but like they are
yeah.
just
Well,
shank.
actually, the thing is, they were. I think they released it just after the season, and they released a statement saying that they wouldn't be competitive till 2024 because they're just setting their team back up because their entire engineering staff and the whole. I mean, the wind tunnel and everything's like there's a lot of resources that they just got now because they like I think they were about to be bankrupt and I think Porsche was about to buy them or something.
Bankrupt.
Yeah, they were
McLaren
gonna.
as in general or the Formula One team or
No,
like
no, no.
something
Formula
like
team, obviously not not McLaren. But the Formula team was about to be bought by another team because they were not able to handle their own
Oh
finances.
yeah, yeah. I think was it for McLaren or was that somebody else? I thought
No,
it was like
it was
Aston
McLaren.
Martin or something.
It was McLaren. So that's exactly why it feels sad to be a McLaren fan right now
Oh
because
yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah, well, they actually it was like they were in a bad financial situation, but they didn't want to sell it actually. So I
exactly.
think Porsche wanted to come in and they wanted to actually F1 wanted Porsche to come in, but Porsche was
Yeah.
like they had some demands, and along with that they also had this thing where we actually want to buy a team because like otherwise we'll have to put a lot of resources ourselves and build it from scratch. Right? But
Yeah.
McLaren was like, no, hands off of this shit, you can make engine for me, but you are not buying this thing. So they were just like,
Yeah.
you not
I think that
that.
they're planning to take a different engine as well. I think so. I'm not sure if they're going to do it because I remember Red Bull is going to be doing it because I think Honda is going to be is also in the talks now. The to be either a part to become back as a either as a constructor or at least as an engine team.
Yeah.
As
So
an engine
why
team.
did they even like leave in the first place?
I
I don't
think they just
understand.
wanted to move their financials away from Formula One and towards sustainability. That was their idea.
Yeah,
That they
yeah,
were
but then
spending a lot
even
of
when
money.
Porsche demanded the same thing, right? So they were like, uh, they actually did start going in that direction. So apparently that's also an interesting. F1 is actually developing sustainable fuels. They had this
Yeah,
project
yeah.
about
I mean,
making fuels
it's
that actually
crazy
you
to.
can use on road, not just for like the racetrack, but they are trying to figure out a formula which can actually work on
Yeah,
roading
yeah,
on cars as well.
exactly, exactly.
That's
So
actually interesting.
when in the earlier seasons of Formula One, the idea was that motorsport would not just push extreme sports in that direction, but also have uh, things engineering that would help in like daily applications. Like if you have cars going around, so it's there's engineering that will help not just races but also on road cars. So yeah, that's always been the idea, right? And because of recent pushes towards, so the 2014, I think it was the turbo hybrid era, right? That's when they
Yeah,
started,
man.
that's when Mercedes started pushing it themselves. So that was basically moving from a V8 engine to a V6 turbo, right? So what happened was with that they had a lot more reliance on ERS. So I think what it's called, energy recovery
And,
system or electric some, it's called an energy recovery system
yeah,
basically,
yeah, hmm,
that
yeah.
that basically supplements your DRS as well. They call it the overtake button, and
Yeah, yeah. So
they
that's the
deploy this
battery that
energy.
gets filled with braking, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Regenerative
yeah,
braking, exactly.
yeah.
So that's the idea. So that's one step forward. But what they want to do is now this is technology that you cannot directly use a lot in
Normal
actual
cars.
cars, because
Yeah,
either you, if you have regenerative braking, then you have hybrids or plug-in hybrids that you'll see. So these are basically cars that on-road cars that use this technology. But then there's like the technology, the actual technology in the engine, the mguk, and then basically the power unit that they use, right? That the power units are not directly useful in on-road cars. So 2026 aims in that direction, which is interesting to think because 2022 just had this huge change in aerodynamics, a huge change in cars and how they're designed from the outside. and now 2026 is going to be in this direction of using better fuels and using engine technology that can be used in on-road cars.
Efficient and stuff like that. Yeah,
right?
That's actually pretty good. It's good that like engine manufacturers, like as in like car manufacturers, are forcing the sport to go towards sustainability. So that's nice.
Yeah.
And it's like technologically, it's always better. It's not usually the argument against sports like these goes like, okay, this is bad for the environment and things like that. But like if it comes from a point where it can change technology, then that's actually a good thing. In a way, it can be an experimentation hub to go into a good direction. That's
exactly. And actually, that was one of the first things that I was thinking about when I started Formula One, like the Netflix show Drive to Survive. When I actually started watching the show, I felt like this was a sport that I could I could get into a lot more than other sports, because of the fact that it's not just the so the sportsman here is the driver, I guess, but that's definitely not the only variable in the equation. There's so much more going on. Of course, in team sports versus individual sports, that's its own thing. But Formula One it starts all the way from the factory, like from engineers that make the car, the power units and everything, and all the way down till engineers in the paddock, and then down to the engineer that is on the radio with him as well, right?
It really is a team sport in that way, in a very technical sense. Like people usually forget that about Formula One. It's not actually a driver's competition. It really is the constructors competition. Like it is
not just a driver's competition.
It's both at the same time, obviously. But like it really is the fact that they are competing on a technical level, in the sense that how better can they make their cars.
Exactly. And that's exactly why they have a drivers' championship and a constructors' championship. And that's why in 2021 Mercedes won the constructors' championship, but Verstappen won the drivers' championship, because he was the better driver that last season, but Mercedes was the better car manufacturer. That's exactly what it was.
Right? Definitely.
So that's exactly why it makes it interesting. And talking about team strategies and everything, that's exactly where I would like to call Ferrari on stage.
My God. Rest in peace. Rip.
Oh, man, it's crazy, right? And I think you told me, I think a couple of weeks ago, that Ferrari has always been bad at strategies. And I think the last time, even in Monaco, the last time the pole sitter didn't win in Monaco was in 2008, and that was also Ferrari. I think that was Alonso back then.
That is the most hilariously true fact. It's like when the fact is a joke in of itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to spice it up. It's true. That's good enough.
It's so bad.
It's insane.
It is really bad. Like, and I think, man, in general, like by this point, like out of all the teams that are on the paddock, I feel like Ferrari are the only one that can actually force their drivers to do the things for them. Like why are they able to? So for example, when we talk about anything that they do, right, a strategy for Leclerc versus strategy for Carlos, anything that, like when they're conflicting or anything at all, when the team has to take a decision, they are super reliant on the drivers themselves to tell them how to like negotiate and what to do with each other. And of course that should be a part of it, but like at one point there should be the authority from the team itself, where we are giving you this thing, right? And then it is up to the driver. Like it will be in his benefit to follow it. If they don't follow it, then that's just a rogue race for them, for that race.
I mean
that they have trouble in the future. But like in general, I think it's very like Ferrari themselves have to be at a strong position where they need to know. The problem is they have such bad strategy right now. In like the strategy people are really so bad that it's actually like better for the drivers to take the decisions right now. But like in general, you look at Red Bull and you look at Mercedes right now, which is I guess one of the things that we took for granted. But their strategists are actually so good, and we saw that in 2021 how close it got almost every race in terms of strategy. Just like man, I still remember that US Grand Prix where Lewis was just one lap behind, and my God, the strategy levels over there on when to pit, how you can undercut. It is just absolutely wild.
It was a full strategy race for sure. Yeah.
It is really well done. That's the thing that I miss. Even like that's one of the things that happened with Norris as well, right? Where he slipped in the rain in the previous championship, right? Which cost him his first win. What happened there, right? The guy on the radio, he was just like, he was not very comfortable in telling him, right? He was asking, should we go for inters?
Yeah, what do you think about inters? That's
What do you
the word
want?
he
What do
used.
you think about inters? That's what he said, right? You have to be confident because you have more data than the driver, right?
Yeah, because
So,
even this guy was, I think Lewis said the same thing, that I think I can stay out in the range not too hard. And I think Bono said, his engineer said that, okay, no, come in. It's gonna start raining, and we want to stay safe. I guess for him it was more about staying second and being ahead of Verstappen at that point. So for him it was just about having more points than Verstappen. For him, winning the race didn't matter all that much
yeah,
at that time, right? But still, the idea was that even if I'm behind Norris, for me it's fine. And for Norris, if he pits, he'll definitely be behind Hamilton. So that was
yeah.
also another thing at play there. So I think that's what they thought of originally, right?
Yeah, but like my point is like in general, I think Ferrari need to be a lot stronger. First, they need to figure out a strategy, and then they need to be stronger about telling them, okay, this is how it's gonna happen, right? So back in the Schumacher era, that's what I've at least read on F1 in the on the F1 subreddit, right? People have just said that during the Michael era, Schumacher era, Formula Ferrari was cutthroat. Like they had complete ready strategy. They always said things very pinpointedly, and it was always just you have to like be realistic always about the situation, right? And they always took
Exactly.
decisions.
And I'm surprised that in times of Schumacher, it used to be insane. Like, even like I think he used to be almost always with this guy, Rubens Barrichello, right? So they were actually the same thing that we were feeling for Bottas for the last couple of years was what everyone used to feel for Barrichello back in the
Yeah.
time, right? That everyone, and it was a whole thing where I think it was a Spanish. I have no clue. I think it might be Hungary or Spain. I don't remember at all. But there was a race where Barrichello was leading almost the entire of the race, but Schumacher got better strategy and like better tire strategy, like managing tires and all. And by the end of the race, I think there were like 10 laps remaining or something, and he had much better pace than Barrichello, so he overtook them. So the idea was
Right.
that Barrichello had got the pole position, and he was leading almost the entirety of the race. But because they gave Schumacher a better strategy, he overtook them. So like people started, audience actually started booing them.
Right.
And so what they did, like, what Schumacher, this was completely Schumacher's idea. What he did was he slowed down at the final corner, and they finished together. And
Yeah.
they had a photo finish, and it
I
was,
know this that they
I
finished
think it
together.
was, he said that they were 0.02 seconds behind. So
Right.
Barrichello was just 0.02 seconds behind. And Schumacher's words were that we tried to go, exactly at the same moment, but we failed. Basically, that's what he said.
Right. Yeah.
There 0.02, that is crazy in and of itself. Like,
Very, very
balancing
close.
that,
Too
it's
close.
crazy.
Yeah.
But the idea is that they've, Schumacher thought of it that way. That okay, no, it makes sense if he was leading the entire race. He had a pole position, then he deserves to win that race. So he
True.
gave him that win, and it was great. Right? That's the idea. But
Yeah.
my point is, Ferrari used to do this, and Ferrari used to be Mercedes. Like, that was exactly the point.
Yeah.
Ferrari used to be like, they used to give team orders. They used to have good strategies. Freaking Schumacher used to talk in the camera when the mic was gone. I think that their radio was shot. There's one of these moments in the F1 videos that they upload all the time, and one of the
Yeah.
moments was that the radio was shot, and he was using hand language, sign language, to communicate with the with
Oh
his
yeah.
engineers
I
what
think
to
I
do.
know
And
about
I
this.
was like,
Yeah. That's
bro, like, this is
that is
okay. Of course,
good
this is a lot more about
captainmanship, I think.
Schumacher than it is about Ferrari. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this
I know in
was
general.
Ferrari at its
And I
best.
also feel
What
like,
are they doing?
like I feel like also Leclerc is like a bit too soft in that regard. He's not very like he needs to be angrier. I feel at this point, not only is he justified, but he needs to be for his own career. Be a bit more angrier, be a bit more stern on the radio, right? Like in the previous race in Silverstone, right? He literally just was at a position where, of course, he was literally faster than science, right? And he was talking on the radio in a way which was like he was just saying, I'm not trying to influence the race, guys, but please, I don't know what to do here. That's how he was like. He was saying it in a way where he was the
Defeatist.
victim.
He was
In
very
a
defeatist.
victim sense, he was speaking, right?
Yeah.
In justice, but no, he has to like look at any sort of like Max. If Max gets this sort of situation, he'll like he curses already. He curses already so much. Like it's like you have to be stern with this situation. Like
No,
at this
but
point, you have to
Leclerc has
talk
always
about it.
had this thing. So even with Vettel, I think in 2019 when they had that engine thing, they had this lead for like first half of the season, and then they got that rule, and so they got much worse, right? So in the first half of the season, Vettel had races like Singapore 2019, Russia 2019, where uh, Leclerc was a qualified better, but due to like start problems or things like that, or maybe Vettel had better race pace. He would overtake. Vettel would overtake Leclerc, and Leclerc would just sit there saying like, "Okay, I wouldn't do anything wrong for Ferrari, but I'm trying to make my feelings clear." He's being very diplomatic about it, right? So when they gave orders to Sainz said the same thing, like, "Stop inventing, stop inventing. Don't
Yeah, he was
like
like so
don't ruin my
clear.
race right
You,
now."
I don't even like. I'm not even angry with science because he did everything correctly for his own race.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
perfect. Like he
Exactly.
has to because you have to negotiate at this point. If Ferrari are not able to create a good strategy and are
Yeah,
not able to be strong, then you gotta say what you have on your mind, right? It's pretty obvious.
exactly.
But
Exactly.
anyways, I think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna be a problem anymore. I hope not. I thought that was the final thing at Monaco, I guess, but it happened once for. I guess I'm a bit worried, but like I don't think it should be a problem anymore. I guess
Yeah,
it'll
I think
be
Leclerc
much
needs to
better.
be a bit strong, just like Science was in Silverstone.
Yeah.
That he
Yeah.
needs to
The
be a
thing
bit
is
more.
that I don't think that probably exists because Leclerc is already a really, really good qualifier. Like he has so
Yeah,
many poles.
that's right.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, but so I think like, and also with the pace, you can clearly see he'll leave science behind. I think unless science improves, he still has half a season. If I feel like if one entire season goes by where you can't find your pace, it becomes a bit of a problem. But like I feel like science
Daniel
still has half a
Ricciardo.
season. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, Daniel is just sad times, which is just I don't know what's gonna happen with him anyways. I don't even care about Daniel. I'm just like, man, Norris, just give Norris a good car, please.
Yeah.
I just want Norris a good
I've
car.
said this before, right? That I want three people to win in this season. It's first is Norris, obviously. Second is Russell, and third is Sainz. I wanted these three people to have a victory this season. Sainz
Yeah.
got his.
No,
Hopefully,
no, Russell
Russell
is
gets his. I don't know if Russell will get his or not,
yeah.
because still Leclerc and Max, like everyone else is still fine. Perez and all, they're still good. Of course, Sainz is still good. But the
Yeah.
point is, the only people that he actually has to defeat is Max and Charles. If both of
True.
them have a bad day, or both of them he manages to defend and manages to attack the way he does. I think in Spain he was really good, right? He was defending Max. I think he defended for like 5-6 laps. He was really good.
Really well.
But in the end,
Yes.
like, obviously Red Bull had a better engine, so he could just overtake
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah. So it's just I feel like Russell, I think can still win. Chances are less, but he can still win it. But like before Norris wins, there are way more chances that like Kevin Magnussen wins it, or like Alonso, or even Ocon at this point, like can
Magnussen,
actually
I
win it.
don't think so. Like, I have
Bro, Haas is faster than McLaren. You know
win.
this, right?
You're talking about winning. I would still put my
No,
money
that's
on
exactly what I'm
Russell
saying.
and
He won't
Norris
win.
over.
He won't. That's exactly what I'm saying. He won't win. But like the chances of Norris winning are so less because McLaren do not have pace. McLaren
Yeah,
don't
of
have
course. I mean, I know, I know. I
so
mean, it's a
yeah,
it's a
Haas
dream,
has better pace.
obviously, but yeah.
So like I'm saying, like if Norris wants to win, like there are way more contenders left before Norris can have a
Yeah,
shot at
fair,
it.
fair, fair.
No,
You're
there's
right.
just
You're
no
right.
chance for him to win this season anyway. So
I think
that's just the
Alonso
thing.
has a really good chance if
Alonso
everything
has a
goes
good
right
chance,
for
but
him.
he's been like DNFing all day. In this sprint, also he, DNF'd. I don't know, his car
He,
wasn't working.
the
He
car
had
didn't
lots of
start or
issues.
something. I don't know what happened. The
Yeah,
like
I mean, he had a lot of issues actually. We've been seeing with like Ferrari recently, but actually Alpine has had a lot of car issues. Like Ocon in Silverstone also his engine stopped, right?
hmm.
Alonso's engine has stopped so many times. Literally
Yeah,
his engine
got
has given up
two
on
or
him
three times
this
this
season.
season. Yeah.
Really bad. Yeah, and it's like I don't know. He really could be on the podium at least two times
I
so
think
far.
Alpine is the only team right now. I guess Ferrari is as well, but Ferrari and Alpine is the only team where there's no first and second driver. It's
True.
clearly it's like Ocon is just as good as Alonso. Like they're
True, true.
doing
He's actually good. He's been good this season, surprisingly.
exactly,
Actually,
exactly.
this is interesting. This is
Yeah,
nice.
and that's
Uh,
that's exactly the whole point, right? So like zooming out a bit for myself, I love the sport itself, right? I love Formula One and how everything. Like I like all the 20 drivers. I guess like I like some more than others, obviously, but that's always going to be there. But I love the sport itself, how people overtake, how people do strategies and everything. So I'm not really supporting a particular team like everyone else is, and I'm
There are
actually the only one here that does that. I mean, I know you're also a Max Verstappen fan in the end, right?
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
I kind of found out that about myself. I still love every team, and I'm actually really rooting for Mercedes right now to get back to equal pace right now. I'm actually the underdog rooter for this because like when we have good teams competing at the top, bro, like more than two teams, like if there are even three teams, that means that like four cars are competing sometimes for the top, and that's just beautiful stuff. Like seriously, right now because Mercedes have a really good driver lineup right now. I think they have the best on the paddock right now. Like Russell and this guy is really good. I felt Leclerc and Sainz would be better, but Sainz hasn't been performing as well. So I think Russell and Hamilton right now are the best duo on the paddock, full paddock right now. And
for
that is
sure. I
like,
mean,
yeah, if they get their pace back, I think they can do. But like, I feel here's the thing, right? So uh, I actually started watching a lot of other sports as well after apart from Formula One because I found a couple of issues with Formula One that just don't sit with me well. Because if you think about it, a lot of the races are actually kind of boring actually because nothing really happens. Like at best, we can think about sometimes strategies happen, but like there is not really a lot of on track racing that happens as much in Formula One. At least it didn't happen in 2021. This season is actually very different, but like 2021 did have good stuff again because 2021 is itself an exception because of the equal cars, but like how there was a complete domination era for Mercedes, right? And things like
of
that.
course, man, of course.
So I feel like that's kind of is not very nice because that kind of takes the competition out. Because I mean, it's just a normal thing, I guess.
I think the
Because
entire
they
after
F1
after
operates.
the turbo hybrid, see, after the 2014 changes came around, right? After the 2 or 3 years, that's what FIA started looking at, right? That because of how Formula One is like used to be at that point, it's not promoting competitive racing. So the two biggest changes that they brought in for competitive racing is first is they had the cost cap, right?
Yeah,
That actually helped a lot, and you've seen it like as soon as
that's
2020 hit. 2020
definitely.
was, I think, the first year, right? The first year when
Yes.
they had the cost cap, and you could see that okay, now Verstappen is winning a lot more races because Red Bull is actually now performing a lot better uh, than they used to because Mercedes is in line with that, right?
2020. I thought 2020 was pretty far, no, for
No,
Mercedes.
I
They
mean,
were
I mean,
way ahead
obviously,
of them.
it was good. I mean, Mercedes obviously was dominating, but it was a lot less dominating than it was in say 2016, 17, 18, 19,
Right, I
right?
guess.
Or
Sure, sure.
those
Yeah.
just the huge years where they were like insanely dominant, where they had 5, 6 races, not 5, 6, but
I
at
think
least they had
2018
four.
was still good because for the first half, Ferrari were actually giving the fight. Vettel really was giving the fight in 2018, I think. But rest of the seasons definitely Mercedes.
2019 was on because of the car, because of the Ferrari car that they had
Yeah,
the
Ferrari
engine thing.
Cheetah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, I mean,
in
yeah.
GT also.
Uh,
Yeah, but anyways, I think, that's a good thing. So what they really need to do now is just make good racing tracks. We need wider racing tracks the way
I
Silverstone
mean,
is,
yeah,
and
sure.
you know,
See, hold on before we
we,
move on to that. The second part was also this 2022 changes that we had right now, right? The first is the this cost caps that they had for competitive racing, and the second was actually the car changes, the aerodynamics that they added, right? Because of the whole
true, exactly, yeah.
that I think it was basically about dirty air, right? The whole idea behind
Yeah,
DRS
yeah, yeah.
is the same thing, that if you have continuous turns, then it's harder for the car behind to keep following, right? If you have a lot of sweeping turns, which is also something that brings me to what you're talking about right now with wider tracks and everything. The Miami track had that big problem of not just being in narrow tracks, but also they had a lot of sweeping turns. So when you have a lot of sweeping turns, it's very difficult for you to overtake. They make for great qualifying laps, but you cannot overtake in turns like that, right? And
It's a sweeping turns, as in you mean faster turns.
yeah, fast or medium speed turns, kind of like the
But like Silverstone has that, right? Silverstone has a
yeah,
lot
this
of
is the
fast turns.
Silverstone turn, what 11, 12, 13, 14. I think that's
Yeah,
the sequence of turns. And
yeah.
also in Kota, the US track, they have turn 4, 5, the 3, 4, 5, 6. That's also the same thing. But yeah, I mean, that's fine. That's just a series of turns, right? Like
Right,
that's like one sequence where you do it and then you're done, right? And then you have a lot
right,
of
right,
braking zones in Kota. You
right.
have a lot of braking zones. In the same way, that was not the case in Miami. Miami actually had, I think there was that long straight at the end of the, just before the main straight, you had that long straight. That was the one braking zone, and there was, I think, one more. There were only two braking zones where you could think of overtaking, not even actually, like, there were actually not a lot of overtaking because of that as well.
I'm so confused about that. Why are they doing that? Like, at this point, the problem with the sport is not having wider tracks and not having a lot of overtakes. If you want to increase overtakes, why are new tracks like not built for better racing? Like, for example, we're gonna have Las Vegas 2022, right? And things like that. So which is a great idea for Formula One. It's a great spectacle, but like again, it's a street circuit, and I haven't seen like.
See,
I don't think
there's one complaint that fans have had for a long time with F1 is that the popular races, even races like Spa and Monza, even those tracks are in the middle of nowhere. In actual geography, it's far away from actual cities, right? So the one big argument for actual street tracks is that people are closer to metropolitan cities, and there's more action happening there, so people are more interested to go there. And also for them, for FIA, it's better to create more and more seats, right? They can create if it's 200,000 300,000 seats. If you go in Las Vegas, it might be like more, like even more, maybe 400 450,000 seats.
I agree. Yeah.
Right. So that's number one. But then the counter, the point is that tracks like Saudi Arabia and Miami are tracks that are designed to be street tracks, but they have their own space. Like they're designed to be a separate
space. Why are you designing it to be a street track? It's not on the street. You're designing it to be a narrow track. What is the logic behind that? I cannot understand.
Exactly.
I don't know what the logic
is. And even with a track like Imola, people have complaints with the fact that it's a very narrow track actually. And since the last 2 years, because they've been having rainy tracks, it becomes a lot more narrow. But even then, Imola has complaints like this. They have a very narrow track, and you're making narrower and narrower tracks, and you're making tracks that resemble street tracks. Saudi Arabia is a great track to qualify on. Miami is a great track to qualify on, but it's not a good track to race on. You don't actually see a lot of good races. I mean, one of the highlights of last season was Saudi Arabia Max's lap, right? It was like that insane lap. Everything came together, and it was like mind and machine coming together. That was beautiful. Even freaking Alonso, 2-time world champion, who's the oldest on track after Kimi, obviously back then, he was shocked at what he was doing, at what Max was doing, right?
Dude, like the thing about that is, like Mercedes had a 0.5 second better engine. Literally, they had this new engine which was better, which is obviously gonna help them in qualifying. And then Max was in 2 sectors, 0.4 seconds better than Hamilton's best lap on the second last Grand Prix, where they were so close, and it was crazy. That lap was crazy. So that's the thing. I guess that's what you're saying, right? They're very good for qualifying.
Like exactly, they're beautiful qualifying tracks. And how I really actually know this is because of the fact that I'm driving on the tracks, right? On F1 2021.
Yeah, you're playing F1,
the game,
right?
Yeah.
Yes, apparently you have this entire wheel as well. You have this huge level of investment in Formula One that like.
I mean, dude,
because I actually introduced you to Formula One. And then you just took off with it.
Well, actually, it was not just you. I had actually a couple of different friends who were talking to me about it. You were the tipping point for me. I had a couple other friends who told me that you should get into Formula One. You should watch the Netflix show. Right? But I think you were the tipping point because you said that you were in general getting more into sports anyway. But then you got me into Formula One, and then I mean. The tipping point for me to get the steering wheel was actually the go-karting that we did back in Ahmedabad, and it's a very basic track for sure. Like Ahmedabad track is not the best by any chance, but it was so thrilling for me that I said I definitely want something like that, and it was a lot of fun. That actually taught me a lot about how tracks work and what tracks are going to be good for qualifying versus racing and things like that. That's why I actually hate the Monza turn 1-2 and the Saudi Arabia turn 1-2. Like that king thing that always leads to crashes. Always. Like it's clear. It happens all the time. That same turn was the turn where Leclerc spun out in Imola. It was that turn 14-15, I think, or it is 13-14. I don't remember.
Right.
It was the same thing, that left right or the right left. Basically, that's exactly what happens every time, and that's why you shouldn't have turns like that, right? But obviously, when you have those turns, you get bigger braking zones. That's basically the point of it. Right? But you shouldn't make just straight tracks where you have just sweeping turns, and you just have narrow tracks where you're just killing racing. You're just doing qualifying. You're making Monaco like this might be a conspiracy theory, but like FIA is trying to create tracks like these, and basically slowly and steadily they'll just kill off Monaco, and then they'll be replaced by Las Vegas track. And
Las Vegas, my God, Liberty Media buying F1, be like literally 6 years later they have changed their original like freaking beginning of sport, complete gone history. But like it's sort of funny. So I think 2022 is a lot better because cars can follow, which is really important for racing. Sure. But like they're doing these things which are like I don't really like. They really need to expand their tracks. Like they need to build wider tracks for sure. Like that would be like.
I agree, man. And I mean, talking about this as well, you know, the fact that you've been getting into sports in a lot more than than before. That also speaks because not just Formula 1. I think you've been following what, tennis and football and everything.
Dude, let me tell you. Look, I'm following right now. So actually, not a lot cricket, but like still cricket. I would say I'm following like relatively. I've just started, right? But which is funny because I'm in India and that's the one sport that I haven't actually looked at a lot. But definitely, I'm starting a lot more with cricket now. But I'm watching tennis now. I'm watching football, right? And I'm thinking like I'm gonna start NBA as well. And like
basketball, okay.
And so like the contrast is kind of crazy with like tennis and football and things like Formula 1, where it's like so many things that are frustrating about Formula 1, where you're like, okay, man, this is such a better driver, but he's in a shit car and things like that, and just a few people fighting at top, where it's like 2-3 people that are fighting for the championship and things like that, you know what I mean? Versus like things like other sports, right? Like if you look at football and so it's like so many teams and so many possibilities, it gets kind of crazy, right?
Sure.
And it's kind of nice that because it's kind of funny because people usually watch other sports and then they come to Formula 1 because a lot people actually don't watch Formula 1 a lot, but they've started to watch at least these first 2 seasons. They've started watching it a lot, and it's nice. But like, if you want to talk about that, like, have you been watching tennis at all? Because like right now Wimbledon is going on. Tomorrow is gonna be the final. And
I think this guy withdrew from the semifinals, right? Nadal.
Yeah, Nadal withdrew. He had an abdominal injury. Dude, that man is such a Chad. Okay, so he in the semifinal, he had he was winning, but then he had an abdominal injury, right? And so that's why he actually lost a few sets. And I'm not taking anything away from the competitor. That guy was also pretty good, but he actually won that. Like it went to 5 sets. It went to the tie break, but Nadal won that tie break, right? And then after winning that semifinal, he says that I won't be able to play winning the quarterfinal. He says I won't be able to play the semifinal, right? And so there's a walkover, and so the Nick Kyrgios was gonna be the guy who was gonna face him, and he's directly gonna go to the finals, right? Mm-hmm. So it's so funny where he actually defeated him on injury. And then he's not gonna go. So that the guy that was like competing, he'd be just like, my God, what a chance I wasted. Like, but it went to the tiebreaker, and it's really good. And dude, the best thing that happened in tennis, my God, I was telling you, so hard to watch that match, but you should have watched the Australian Open, right? You did not watch the Australian Open final. That has to be the single best sporting event I watched, at least the top 1-2 sporting event I watched in my life. That thing was so beautiful because there was no chance Nadal was gonna win it. Nobody had believed.
It's that it was the one against Medvedev, I think.
Yes, against Medvedev.
I watched the final set.
One game down. He was literally broken. This is like one of those classic things that you read in stories, right? Where it's like, and then the guy, the veteran who had this experience actually, fought and came back and won. And it actually plays out like a goddamn play where he's 2 sets down and broken in a game and then he recovers. But like, which is the thing, because like, not only the next generation, but also the generation after that are not able to compete with like the top big 3. So like, if you don't know a lot about that, right? So the 3 people that have been dominating men's tennis for at least 20 years, right, are Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, right?
Yep.
And these three people have 60 slams between them, 60 Grand
62
Slams.
now, right? 62.
Yeah, now 62. Now 62 Grand Slams. And if we think about from the start of 2002, that actually means that you have like how many? 20 years, 4 Grand Slams in 1 year. That is 80 Grand Slams. And 60 Grand Slams are just between 3 people. So you can imagine the level of domination that they had in the career, especially from 2005 to 2015. Like the level of competition that was there, the level of tennis was just crazy. Some of the best matches that have come out from there, 2008 Wimbledon and like, you know, Australian Open and things like that. There's just finals which are just so beautiful, and like it's finally at a point where we feel like the new players aren't able to do as much. And which is a thing I actually seen in sports in general. So like even in football and things like that.
Before you move on, I want to know about the finals actually. The Wimbledon finals. Is one of the top 3 in the finals or no?
Yeah, Nadal so Djokovic.
Djokovic
yeah,
is there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Djokovic is
didn't Djokovic ban him from the previous Open, I think?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. Yeah. So here's the situation, right? So Novak Djokovic actually has not been vaccinated. He's an anti-vaxxer, I guess. But yeah, so he hasn't gotten vaccinated. But so that's why they didn't allow him in the Australian Open.
Okay.
But they did allow, like the France did allow him, I guess. So that's why he played the French Open.
Oh, okay.
But French Open is the kingdom of Rafael Nadal. And so, of course, he's going to win there because he has actually had the domination in clay. Do you know how many Grand Slams he has won in clay?
I think 12 or something, right?
He has 14 Grand Slams on clay. Dude, 14. That is, I think, Pete Sampras, the guy before Federer, right? So Federer broke the record of the highest number of Grand Slams before, I think, Pete Sampras, right? Who had 14 Grand Slams, which is the highest number of Grand Slams. Nadal has covered that tally just in the French Open, like only that. You can imagine that generation of players and how well they played, right? But in general, so Djokovic has been actually dominating really well right now. Like Nadal actually has had a lot of injuries and like sometimes his game is off and things like that. So he's been a bit at the edges, but like
I think he's reaching the Federer stage now, right? He's reaching the same stage as Federer now.
I guess, yeah, it looks like. Well, the thing is, that's what we thought, but it's actually not the case. Because the thing is, like, Federer is now actually old. So, like, I think Federer is like 4 or 5 years older than Nadal, right?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and so now he's actually old and he really will not be able to compete. But like, you never know. People are still on the subreddit. People are still like, he'll come back for this one Wimbledon and still win. Because here's the thing that happened. He won the Wimbledon he lost in Wimbledon in 2019 final to Novak Djokovic, right?
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, in the final. But dude, he was gonna win it. He had breakpoint to win the championship final. Okay. And then Djokovic stood his ground and did not let that 1 point go away. The breakpoint, that is the final championship point. Federer had the championship point and he couldn't win in 2019. So, and I think at that point he was at age 38. And he went to the final point of the final championships. And the only other guy that could beat him was Djokovic, who already has these many slams. So it's just they had the level of precision is completely different for tennis right now, at least among
I think Nadal is like the king of clay, but he's the exact opposite in Wimbledon, right? He's only won 1 or 2 Wimbledons.
Actually clay is the most slowest court, right? And grass courts are the fastest courts in the sense of the ball, right? And Nadal's strategy is just like a huge amount of spin in the ball and like, grueling matches, right? And so clay is naturally very good for him, and he's been obviously dominating in that, like completely crazy. And the thing is, French Open and Wimbledon don't have a lot of time in between, so you need a lot of different practice for Wimbledon, and the ability of winning French Open and then winning Wimbledon is actually really difficult. So that, and plus Wimbledon is completely different court, so it's generally difficult for him, right? And so there's this sort of entire scenario. But Nadal was actually looking really good this season. So here's the thing that I'm talking about, right? Like he's actually being held back by injury because he did win 2 Grand Slams. If you forget everything else, winning 2 Grand Slams in a year is like a breakthrough story for any tennis guy that would be coming on this season. And he's just winning that. We were thinking that he may win the Canada Slam, but that was like a very far possibility with Djokovic being in the way. But that's also the funny thing, that the only guy that can actually stop him on tour is just Djokovic. Like, at least in slams, not in other place. But it's really interesting. And Djokovic is probably gonna win this one. There's like no chances. Nick has a really good serve. So Nick Kyrgios is actually the bad boy right now of tennis. He has a really like bad attitude, and he kind of like always harps with the umpire always. And he's an Australian.
Oh yeah, and, I think
you might know.
Right.
I heard of him, but this guy always just like tries to like play mentally and tries to do these weird things always, right? So like his on court is not very good, but like he has a really good skill. Like he has a very crazy serve. Like his serves are always really good. Like, and let's see, it could be an interesting final, but Djokovic is probably gonna win. He's just
I think
too good.
I think I was talking to someone about this, and I said that Djokovic and Kyrgios are clear examples of the fact that you don't have to be a good person to be a good sportsman.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be like you're really talented and everything, but you don't have like, there's always these Disney Channel stories, right? These movies that you have, and, you need to be more humble to be better and things like that.
I agree.
These two are a clear example of the fact that this is completely not true. Right?
Yeah, so Novak is, I think, still like a good person, but Nick, like, of course, Nick is literally that. He's like, if not, then he's literally trying to show that he's that kind of a person, like, he's like just a bad guy. But like, that's the thing I actually had for a long time now. There, like, people in sports in general, we shouldn't be looking for their personalities, man. Like, why are we looking for like even celebrities?
Says the Verstappen fan. Says the Verstappen fan.
Yeah, I guess I plead guilty, right? Guilty as charged, but like still, I get it. But like, I feel like that is like, that's not their job. Do you want this to be a reality TV where people are just thinking about their appearances and stuff? Like, why are we harping on them about that? You should be a civil person. But after that, it's just competition, man. And you're here to watch the sport. You're here to watch the like level quality.
Exactly. I don't care what they think after the match is over or before the match starts.
True, yeah. Which is also true for like celebrities, actually. This is like a wider point for just people that are famous in general. Like even celebrities, you are supposed to look at their acting, man. The entire industry in general has converted to a point where it's just, like people watching these, late night shows where people like watch people with personalities. If they find that this guy has a good personality, then they maybe check out their movie that just recently.
Basically things with Keanu Reeves. Basically,
yeah. People should be civil and people should be good and people should do illegal things. Obviously, I'm not saying that people should be bad, but I'm saying that don't give them the power to be influential. We say famous people are influential, right? But we give them that power by looking at them and thinking about their personalities, which is a personal thing. They're here to do a job, right? They're just actors or sportsmen, and I think that's...
I mean, I agree, man. I mean, that's been a big thing that people talk about all the time, right? That you're influenced. What do you think about this? And like media does that a lot, right? There, something's happening in some part of the world, and then they'll be here asking, "What do you think about this?" I mean, it's not their job to know about this as well. I mean, if they're talking about politics, see, of course, there's again instances in F1 where you have to talk about things, like Lewis taking a stand about Black Lives Matter, and Norris taking a stand about mental health, and these people, like this thing that happened with Nelson Piquet and that Yuri Vips about racism. That is obviously wrong. This is clearly wrong things that you're obviously not supposed to do. But then on top of that, if you like, and also things that Vettel does all the time, that he talks about political problems.
He talks about issues.
Yeah, exactly. He talks
like
about
talking about issues from their end is not the problem. The problem aren't the famous people here, like not the sportsmen. They should raise their voices because they naturally have an audience. So they should, promote good things. That's never wrong. They should do whatever they please in that matter, right? But from our part, I think it's just pretty crazy that we rely on famous people's opinions more than experts' opinions on things which actually matter. On this kind of
I think who said that? That I think it was one of the stand-up comedians that said that your nation has gone to shit when you take comedians' opinions seriously and laugh at politicians' opinions.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember who that
But
was,
that's a
but
good
yeah,
one.
it was.
Damn.
And but the thing is, see, that's really the thin line that you're supposed to walk, right? That if sports persons have these bigger audiences than normal people do, then they're bringing issues out, and that's something that I mean, because they're saying these things, they become influential, right?
True,
So
true.
what media is doing is taking, like, they're flipping it around, and it's still a very thin line. It's just flipped around where they say that now they're asking what you think about this problem,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they might or might not know about it. Of course, if they know about it, and they have certain opinions, and they think that
Opinions on
the
it. Yeah,
things will be done in a particular way, then that
yeah.
makes sense. But then if they don't, and you're forcing them into an answer, that answer may not be as well informed as you would want it to be, right?
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
it's just this hot take
It's just
mentality,
not their
this.
job, man.
Yeah, it just becomes this hot take mentality where look what this guy said, look what that guy
Yeah,
said, things
exactly.
like
That's
that, right?
what we.
And then that becomes really messy, for sure, man, for sure. It's And I
That's,
mean,
I don't
I
know, but
think
like I
the
think,
last the weirdest thing that happened this season was the whole Saudi Arabia race as well, right? That
yeah,
everyone watched the race in peace and all, but there were blasts going on, like
dude, literally
15,
there
20
were, yeah,
miles from the
bombings going
track,
on.
and that
What
was
the hell, man?
insane. And like
What
they
the
went
fuck?
into that what do you call it, they went in a meeting with the FIA stewards and all,
Yeah,
and they went with the drivers, and they were discussing whether they should do the race or not. I mean, I don't have an opinion about it. I guess if they did the race, I think they would know that it
yeah,
was safe. But that is very, very dangerous. Like, isn't that
yeah.
dangerous? Like, what
I
the
don't know.
hell?
It is dangerous. I don't know, man. What the hell was going on with that? It is very weird, man. That was
Yeah,
really weird.
for sure.
But yeah, and that's actually really interesting because like I have been seeing a lot of actually problems like this in like football as well, where it's like there. Do you know the 2022 World Cup is gonna happen in Qatar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Qatar World Cup, and that's just money
Qatar,
speaking.
Qatar.
They were, yeah, Qatar,
Huh.
Qatar.
What? You will
Oh,
sing
I was
Qatar
saying
all this
Qatar.
time? Okay.
No, no, I wasn't. I just
Okay.
maybe
Sure,
slip
sure.
of
Yeah.
tongue.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and in Qatar, it's just like there have been so many allegations, and like from the very start, people have not liked the idea that football is gonna be happening in Qatar, right? And it's just like so many of these stadiums are also built by like almost not slaves exactly, but like very in harsh conditions and things like that. It's just not good. The whole political climate about that is just not been good. Like they've
Right.
not done good things, and it's just rights happening and all these things. But like money has actually taken such a stronghold on it, like just like Formula One. But like Formula One, I think is a way more natural in that way because there, of course, it's car racing. So like oil companies naturally are the perfect sponsors for things
I
like this.
wouldn't think
So
that's
when
entirely true though, because I feel that if there are constructors, then shouldn't it be in Europe more? Shouldn't Europe automobile money be worth more than Middle Eastern oil money? Like, I
bro,
feel.
that's the whole thing, no. But bro, that's the thing. Like a lot of Middle Eastern money has been pouring into sports. So a lot of
Yes,
Middle East
I was
people
actually
from the
talking
Middle
about
East
this
have been
with
coming
a friend of
and
mine that.
been investing. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. What? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of not just in Formula One, but even in football, in like club sports, a lot of teams are actually now being backed by like oil money. Like all these people from the Middle East, they have been like spending a lot of money on sports. In general, they've started spending a lot of money in sports. That's why
Right.
I feel Formula One it must be way back in Formula One because oil companies are just a good sponsor for motor racing. So I think that will be for a long time, been going on for a long time for Formula One.
Right, right, right.
But in football, in club football, like literally right now in the Premier League. So in the Premier League, like there are a few of the top teams, like Manchester City, you have Chelsea and things like that. They are literally being backed by oil money, dude. And like a lot of people say that's the reason why they are able to just buy better players and win. Like
Right.
which is kind of like crazy. Even like teams like PSG and things like that. Like you know.
Really, your PSG is
And
funded by that? I didn't know that.
PSG is full oil money only, bro. Dude,
Oh.
PSG has been a clown club this season, bro. Let me tell you, it has been so crazy, man.
I think
It has been so crazy.
I think Messi moved to that, and then there's one player that was moving away from.
Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah, so let me tell you about the PSG clowns are. Okay, so I mean, I guess not clown
No,
saga, but it's like
hold on. There's one more thing. So I remember I was talking about this with a friend of mine as well. I think Olympics is having a similar problem. That
yeah,
Olympics
I
has
think
this,
so.
the football,
From
Formula
what
One,
I know.
that all of these used to be in general like more European centric, and now it's moving to other countries. That's still fine. So they're moving away from Europe and they're moving to Middle East and the US now. So that's
Yeah,
actually been the new trend. So Olympics has always been in the US as well. Obviously, US
for a
has the
long time.
most
Yeah, they're
medals.
the top country,
Yeah,
always
exactly.
gold
But
medals
no,
from
also
US.
more importantly, like we were looking at the list of Olympic events, right? So the first one was in 1896, right? And I think we counted, I think 7 or 8 events out of a total of 25, 26 till now that were all in the US, and a lot of them are actually in this, what do you call, in Los Angeles actually. So
You
there were
mean
actually,
Olympics events?
yeah, Olympic events, the older events more like the next one I think it's going to be in Los Angeles now. The next one or the one after that I think is going to be in Los Angeles.
Right.
But the
Right.
point is they've actually been Olympics has been around in the US, but not just medalists but also the events. Both have been very US centric. But now it has become in a lot more sports, a lot more worldwide sports, they've been gravitating towards Middle East and US now. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
so that's the thing actually. Like at least from the football sphere, I heard this a lot, where actually US has a very good sports economy. So they've just created this way of having some sort of engagement with the fans, like especially the NFL. The NFL has a very good economical model where they are able to just profit a lot. So a
Oh,
lot
really?
of
Okay.
viewership and sports market, the model is really well developed in US rather than in other countries. So a lot of sports are gravitating towards that, right? Going in that direction. So
I
if you
see.
look at Formula One, obviously Formula One is becoming more, having more races in the US and
Right.
things like that. Then you have even like in football, I'm seeing like some of the like even UEFA, they're trying to make it a more of a spectacle than it was. Like football has been this been thing that it has a lot of an obsession with itself, where it's like even the finals and things like that have a lot of cultural history and things like that has always been a part of this sport, right? Especially club football. And now
Interesting. Okay.
it's yeah, and now they're just trying to UEFA, which is the European Championship competition for football.
Right.
They have actually started Americanizing it a bit more, where like the final few events they're trying to what they're trying to do. So here's the let me tell you about how English football works, right? So this is kind of like a detour, I guess, but it's a good
Sure. Sure.
explanation. So do you know how English football works?
I mean, I don't know
Right.
how
So
any
yeah,
football works, but yeah.
yeah. So like the entire thing is like a pyramid structure, right? Where the clubs don't all the best clubs don't compete with each other all the time, right?
Okay.
In Europe, so every country has their own leagues,
Right. Yeah,
right?
I know
Yeah,
that.
every football country has their leagues. Like
Yeah.
they have the Premier League and the La Liga and things like
Yeah.
that. Now, even in that, they have a lot of tiers, right? So there are like literally 4 to 5 tiers I know that exist in English football, and
Right.
there
Right.
are must be similarly in other countries as well, right? And
Right.
there is an entire relegation system. So there are 20 teams that are competing, and there is no playoffs in the leagues. So in
Okay.
the country level leagues, there is no playoffs. It's just
What's
if you
playoffs
win, you
exactly?
get playoffs is you being pit against one another into like a bracket, championship bracket, where it's
Or
like
like
the round of
so
16 and then the
after you
quarterfinal.
gain points, you have those quarterfinal,
And
semi-final, basically
yeah,
that structure, but for a much larger number of teams, basically. Is that what you
yeah.
mean?
So no, but there's no so there's no pitting. So okay, so for example, if we talk about classic, like a classic cricket championship or
Sure. Sure.
stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? There is a round of 16, and then there's the quarterfinals, right?
Right.
The teams that win move ahead, right?
Got it. Yeah.
That's the playoffs that
That's playoffs.
teams
Yeah.
get
Got it.
knocked out.
Understood. Okay.
That's what the playoffs are.
Okay.
So like, and one other way is doing having the point system, right?
Got it.
League system, where it's like Formula One, where if you win, then you get more points, and at the end the guy has the most points wins the cup, right?
Basically,
So that's how it's going. And so it's really interesting, where it's like if the 20 teams compete, and if you are the bottom 3 teams, then you will get relegated, as in you will go into the bottom tier of the football championship, and the 3 best teams from the lower tier will come up and play in the next championship.
Okay, interesting.
So it's a way to refresh the championship, the leagues, to have the best teams. So like if you are performing bad, then you will be relegated, right? This is the football system. And after that, the best teams, so from the previous season, the best teams from every country, like the best 3 to 4 teams from every country, come up for the UEFA championship.
Right.
And this is the pan European championship, where they have like a few for sometimes there are there is a point system for a few matches, and then it comes to the round of 16. And the round of 16
just like cricket World Cup, just like that.
Cricket World Cup, right? But then also there are 2 legs, so they play two matches, right? And they
play 2 matches together, right?
Yeah, so one in the home team of one team, and then of the home ground of the other team. Right? And that's why
so much traveling.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But I guess it's separated a lot, and Europe is actually a lot smaller.
Yeah. Right. I don't want to comment about that right
This is exciting. Yeah. But like, so that's how it is. And like, this has been such a good format for football, where the 2-legged championship, they have given us so many like rebounds and things like that, which is this championship. By the way, Real Madrid is the greatest football team ever, because the comeback that they had this season was just the most beautiful. There was no chance they were going to win this season, but they won the Champions League this season. It was the best.
Oh, they won the Champions League. Oh, nice.
Yeah, Real Madrid won the Champions League.
Oh, yeah. That was I think 90-minute goal they had. I think something like that, right?
Watch the second leg of the semi-final versus Manchester City. Okay, dude, these guys have been pumping money in these teams for such a long time, and they haven't been able to win the Champions League. They're winning the Premier League. They have been winning the Premier League for a long time, by the way. Which is actually
Madrid? Isn't Madrid in
La Liga? Yeah, Madrid is in La Liga. I'm talking about Manchester City in Premier League.
Okay.
Yeah, so Manchester City have been winning the Premier League for a long time. At least I think in the last 5 years, they won the last 4, I think, cups. That is actually pretty good. That is crazy. That's actually really crazy. Now, part of it is because there's this one manager who managed the best team in the world. That was Barcelona, 2011. But that is a long story. But like, the point is, they have a really good manager, and they actually made smart decisions. There are also other teams that have had a lot of money pumped into them. Manchester United, but there have been.
I have no clue what that means at all, but okay.
Yeah, football player, watchers will understand. So you don't have to worry. But like, the point is, this is like the whole system, and what they're trying to do now basically is to turn it into more of a European championship sort of thing, where all of the semi-finals are done at the same time, and like there's this 1 week of playoffs where everything happens, and it's a big spectacle, right? And which kind of makes sense actually if you think about it economically. It makes a lot more sense, and it's like an event, a whole week of best sports, which sounds good. But the problem with that is that football has been football clubs have so much of this culture, and they have so much of an identity with the club. Like, football fans are more passionate than anything else you've ever seen ever. Okay, football club fans are very passionate. They're it's on completely a different level, right? They're and they have a lot of history with their club, and they're just they want matches to be played in their home ground, and it's because there has been a tradition where you play 2 legs, one in the home ground and one in the foreign ground, right? And the support that you have in a home ground is an entire thing, how it helps you and how it helps for the morale, right? And it's just, these are the sort of things that have been happening with European sports a lot, like Formula One you've seen, and now UEFA. It's kind of, I don't know, people have.
I mean, I don't think Americanizing, you use that word, Americanizing the football sport. I don't think that's a good thing, though. If you have more fans watching the show, not the show, sorry, the series, the entire, not just UEFA, people who start with the UEFA, just like you were doing it, right? You started with the UEFA, but then you went into each of the separate leagues as well, and then each of their own clubs as well. right? I don't know what club you follow, by the way. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, no, I'm not actually. I haven't really started following or anything like that. I've just
Okay.
actually, I properly started watching only this season, right?
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, I am actually like, I am definitely supporting Real Madrid, and
Oh,
then
okay. Okay.
yeah, and then the Premier League, I like a few teams, but it's sort of fine. Like,
Sure, sure, sure. Because see,
yeah,
this is one thing I've heard. So I have a
I
lot
love
of
it.
friends who are football fans, right? And this is the one thing that I've known a lot. So people support teams in football no matter what. Like
Yes,
there's
that's the whole
so okay.
thing.
There's this thing that people tell me in Formula One as well, that why aren't you supporting anyone? And I'm like, yeah, no, I support. I guess if you want an answer, I support Norris and I support McLaren, but I
Yeah,
really don't support anyone
you
at
don't
all.
support. Yeah,
Right? I
this is
really
true
don't
for me
support.
as well. Actually, yeah, I don't actually support. I find the idea of supporting teams a bit strange, actually.
I
To be honest with you.
mean,
Especially with club football, club things, like things that
right,
aren't
right, right.
related to your nationality. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, you would support your own team of your country. That's the simple
Yeah,
way.
but
But
the
like,
thing is
yeah,
that's actually true with literally everyone I know. So like everyone supports their teams like crazy. People have been supporting in
it's
IPL. People support the RCB team like no matter what. That's a
yeah,
whole
it is
meme,
just stupid.
right?
I think IPL is actually pretty stupid that way. I guess it takes time and you can build that, but like, it's completely commercialized. It really doesn't have a history.
Not
It's like
really. I
11
mean,
years.
if no, you people really are fans of players and
Yeah,
heads
that
of
is,
teams, right?
they really are.
I
Yeah.
have a friend of mine who's a great fan of Mumbai Indians, right? And
Hmm.
this year we had Gujarat Titans come up. Gujarat as a team, but then we've had you know he still supports Mumbai Indians as his number one team, but now he started supporting Gujarat as well. And I'm like, okay, yeah, so you have this allegiance to Gujarat because you're Gujarati, got it. But you also have this allegiance to Mumbai since you've been, supporting Mumbai since forever. And like, okay, that's a bit strange. And again, it makes sense to them. It makes sense to everyone. It doesn't make
Yeah, but
sense to me. I don't know why it doesn't make sense to
dude,
me.
yeah, and you don't know this, dude. Like in football, like you've seen this, right? But especially in club football, this thing is cranked up to the max. Like people won't leave their club no
No,
matter
I've seen
what.
people. Okay, I look at people. So people will talk about which teams people like, and so okay, I'll obviously be a bystander. I'm like, yeah, I only know players because people talk about players, and I know about teams because they know, but I don't know anything about who's good, who's bad. And people will talk about that, and then they'll say, okay, well, who do you support? Oh, you into football? What team do you support? And like Manchester United. And people will be like, oh, I'm like, I don't understand what that means. I don't know what that means at all. And
It
people will
means
be like, oh,
it
okay,
means
I support.
it means a decade of pain, though.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
mean, yeah,
Manchester
apparently, I
United
guess.
fan
So,
means.
and then people will say, okay, I support Arsenal or I support, I support Barcelona, and people will have
Yeah.
these reactions, and I don't understand at all what that means. But it's
Bro,
so
that's like a
interesting to
dude,
see people react in a particular way.
it's a
Right?
whole statement, bro. If you like, actually, I've had a crash course almost in football. I've been following the subreddit and like for football, and I just had a crash course of how teams work, what is the
Right.
histories of everything. I had a lot of information this year, and bro, there is like an entire thing to be said. Like, if you just say which football fan you're supporting, like you already understand a lot about that person, like in that way, specifically
Oh,
about the way that they watch football and like that,
interesting.
right? And it's just like a whole thing because because actually, what the thing is, football has been actually really old. Club football in particular is like has been happening for 150 years, right?
Right.
And they were really built from the ground. They really were built from people that wanted to create something. Like they're publicly funded teams and they like rose
Right.
in the ranks. Like it has this whole journey, like, and that's why they have such ardent fans and like
This
such crazy
guy,
level
I
of,
don't know. I
you
think
know.
he has a tier three team or a tier two
Yeah,
team.
so exactly. John Green
John
has
Green,
a
yeah.
they're in tier three right now.
I think yeah, you talked about that they just did they moved to tier three last year or something. I don't know at
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So interesting thing is, they actually had he actually had a podcast with Ryan Reynolds,
Oh wow.
and yeah, and he actually owns a fifth tier English football team. So
Oh okay.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So they are having a discussion about having a thing common, which is owning an English football team which is in the lower tiers. which is like a weird thing to have common, which is just hilarious. You should check that podcast out. Dear Hank and John with Ryan Reynolds. It's a really funny podcast, by the way.
Really? Okay.
Really nice episode. But yeah, I watched that. And it's like, that's really funny. Like, how do you have that thing in common, which is having an entire English thing? But like, yeah, it's nice, man. I have like, and football is just like, bro, I don't know why, like people, you need to tell Vidhey to watch football. Okay. Vidhey needs to start watching football now. Okay. We really need this guy to watch football.
I need, dude, the people have been telling me to watch so many different sports, man. It's not just like football, obviously, because football has these ardent fans all the time. So of course, people tell me to watch football all the time. But then a lot of other sports, even like, people that have been meeting here, they started watching, people have been watching basketball for a long time. People have been watching American football for a long time as well, which is, which is interesting. I love watching the sports, right? When I'm watching them, they're really interesting. American football, for example, really interesting. When I first watched the Super Bowl, I think it was in 2020 Super Bowl, the one with KC Chiefs against 49ers, San Francisco 49ers. Basically, Kansas versus San Francisco. That's all you need to know, basically.
I have no clue about
so San Francisco was the champion, and Kansas City was the underdog. And they won the Super Bowl back then, right? And it was really interesting to see. So I had a couple of friends who already watched football and they knew about the sport. And I watched, I think, the semifinals of the underdog team winning, basically. And I learned about the sport a lot. And I started understanding, what rules are and how the game works and everything. And it was really interesting to watch, the Super Bowl, the actual event, right? And it was the halftime and everything, like all of that aside, the event itself is huge, right? Super Bowl. And actually, when we think about, why IPL finals are this crazy, or why do they have all these show, you have no clue. Okay. Super Bowl finals are insane.
Like, yeah, even though people aren't, I heard this, even though people don't watch like sports or anything in US, everybody watches Super Bowl. This is like a whole thing because it's like
in the US,
it's like a separate event.
Yeah, so in the US, there's actually this season concept, the concept of seasons, where they have, in the winter they'll go with football, and then they'll move to baseball, I think, and then they move to basketball. So around the clock, they have one sport that they're constantly watching, right? So for us, if it's cricket, you'll have, obviously every 4 years you'll have the World Cup, but other than that, you'll have IPL every year, which will come in the summers, and then you'll have the international matches that will happen, and then it's just haphazard, right? But what happens in here is, like, they'll have these 3 months for every sport, 3 or 4 months, I think, and they'll just cycle around. So everyone will have a supporting team for every sport, and so everyone will have a sport to watch all year round.
Which is this nice, I guess. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, and so I've been trying to do that as well. I've been trying to watch sports. I've been trying to do that, but it never really catches on. When I'm not watching the sport, I don't care about it, right? That's something that's happened a lot with me. And actually, see, the only two sports that I'm against, like anti that particular sport, I'll come to them. Okay, I'll come to them, and we'll talk about them. The countdown. But most other sports, I'm actually very non-sport. Like when I'm watching tennis, I love tennis. When I'm watching American football, I love it. But when I get out of it, I'm like, okay, like. When I'm not watching, I don't care. I don't think twice if there's a particular match going on, if I'm supposed to watch that match.
That's actually true with me for tennis as well. Like, not actually, I guess it will be true for me for football as well, but like football just has so much context behind it, which you just need to understand before you can actually finally appreciate the teams and what they're doing, which is just like, which is like, the best way to get into a sport is just follow the subreddit. The simplest way to do it, okay? And watch a few of the comments.
That's the nerd's way to follow a sport, but sure,
yeah. Which is this whole podcast, by the way. This whole podcast is just two nerds that are trying to understand how sports works, basically.
Sure.
You're probably just talking out of our asses right now anyway. But like that's the whole thing. So it's like, but you can understand the history pretty fast, but like it is a big waste of time. Like if you actually get into a sport, then it's like, like following subreddit and things like that, you just get sucked in. I had a lot of my hours wasted just trying to, understand what's going on. And things like that. But if you like, particularly in tennis, if you don't like follow anything else, like don't watch the subreddits, it's really easy. Just watch the matches. just watch from the quarterfinals for every Grand Slam. That's all
sure.
you need.
If people
Really
see,
easy.
the thing is for me, I watch sports a lot when when friends are watching. So if people are watching a match, then I'll watch with them. The only two sports which I'll watch even if I'm alone are Formula One and cricket. Those are the only two. Like even cricket has reduced a lot with me, but that a lot of that has to do with the fact that the time doesn't set up properly, right? It's generally it's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. matches. Not IPL.
Yeah.
IPL is still fine, but other matches generally won't set up in the time zone properly. So that's also one of the reasons, but that's definitely not the whole reason. I've been following cricket less and less for sure, and I need to come back to that. But yeah, those are the only two sports that I'll watch alone. If like I can have the TV going, firing up behind me, and I'll just be watching it even if I'm alone. All other sports I'll be watching with my friends, right? But the two sports that I don't like watching, that I'm anti-sport, is football and basketball. And now football, that's basically is like
those are the best sports you could watch.
yeah, I mean, on top
those
of all
are
of
the
that,
best, like objectively, bro.
yeah, I mean, and on top of all of that, actually, football and basketball fans are the most ardent fans that I've seen. One of them, if not the best, the most ardent fans, they're one of the most ardent fans for sure. That they're crazy about the football club that they follow or the basketball club that they follow for sure, right?
Yeah.
But the one so I have, for me, the spectrum in which I I rate sports, for lack of a better term, football and basketball actually fall in the opposite ends of the spectrum for me, which is why I don't like to watch them. First is football, where things don't happen a lot, which is something that you said for Formula One, and I'm reassessing my judgment for football now. But in general, for football, not a lot of things happen. Like of course, there's like one goal, two goals. At least Formula One has like 30-40 overtakes in the race. Like football, nothing really happens in football.
One overtakes are pointless. Most of the times they happen because you pitted. Dude, it's pointless, man.
No, that happens in street circuits. I mean, no, that happens in street circuits a lot more. If you have good overtaking tracks,
even in things happen. Let me tell you, in Silverstone, we had a really good race because there was a safety car. If there was not a safety car, we would have a good fight, but only for the top. Only for the top two races.
Because the people that were fighting had damages. Joe crashed, Albon crashed, Russell crashed, right? Yeah, so, and then there were Bottas went out of the fight. That was I think one more driver went out, and then Ocon went out. Like 6 drivers by the end of the race. 6 drivers were out of the race anyway, right? So that actually reduced it a lot. But my point is, okay, don't come to Formula One right now. Okay, let me talk about football.
Okay, sure.
Because football, of course, it's 90 minutes. It's pretty short. Cricket is a much longer sport, which is a bit strange. I watch cricket and I don't watch football. That's true. I've heard all of these arguments. Okay, I've heard all that you have to say about this. But the point is that Formula One or cricket or all of that, it interests me. In the end, football, when I look at it, it feels like Greek to me. Like I don't understand the strategies that are working, that are happening. The substitutions that they make.
Even when we were playing, you were always the goalkeeper anyway. So you weren't really interested in football anyway when you were playing also. So
I mean, sure, I loved being a goalkeeper, to be honest. I deflected a lot of goals. Okay, I was a good goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But I mean, sure, I was a goalkeeper only. Sure, that has a lot more to do with the fact that I had a shit stamina, and more than the fact that I like football or not. That's a completely separate thing. But and the fact that I don't drive a Formula One car. Okay, but I still like Formula One.
Sure.
Yeah. But anyway, we're getting digressed. My point is that's actually why I don't like football. Is that I don't understand what happens when I watch the sport. When I watched American football the first time, I understood what was happening, and I could I could follow that things are happening in the way that they're happening, and it's interesting. Baseball as well. Baseball is a bit more boring than I thought it would be. I thought baseball was gonna be different from cricket, but it would be still its own, like it will be still its own sport, but it will be the same pace as cricket. But it actually is not. Like it's actually slower than cricket as well.
Right. As well. I thought it would be faster than cricket.
It's faster and slower in the same ways. Like because of how baseball is designed, there's a lot of stop and go gameplay, which is the same in cricket. But in cricket, you have a lot more shots going on. So you have these tactics, right? So you have these first 10 overs and then like the next 10 overs and all of that, right? In baseball, I couldn't understand that, and that also kind of led me to be a bit more bored of it. But I'm not saying slow in a bad way at all. Like, it has its own pace, and it was interesting to me. Like, I understood a lot of things. I didn't understand everything, obviously, but it was interesting to me, right? But football, I couldn't understand, so I couldn't find that. And basketball has the exact opposite problems. But you constantly have baskets. Okay.
Yeah.
By like you have what 100 points, 120 points, 130 points going on for like your normal basket shot is what 2 points, and then like the outer line you have 3 points, and you do what 120 points. That's like 60 point shots going in. God knows however many attempts, right? But like, so it's constantly, there's so many attempts and there's so many things happening. There's not a lot of strategy that I see happening, because it's just from one end to another end, they just keep going and they keep scoring. And the football has the exact opposite problem. They
don't score at all.
They don't score at all. Like,
I see. Yeah, no, I'll tell you.
Very strange to me.
So here's the thing about football and basketball. Now, I haven't actually watched a lot of basketball. I don't know anything about the rules, so I can't speak for it. But I'm pretty sure this is the thing in that as well, right? Which is, these are actually only one of the few sports, including things like these. Then there is hockey and things like that, right? Ice hockey, normal hockey, where the sport is dynamic, right? Every other sport has set pieces and breaks, right? You understand what I mean? So what is a set piece? Like, a certain action happens and there is a result of that, right? And which gets recorded. It's like every sport is that. Like, we have tennis, cricket, you take, American football, everything that you watch, right? Like, I guess Formula 1 isn't that, right? I guess Formula 1 is continuous in a way. Definitely. Yeah, so Formula 1 is dynamic in that way, right? So these are the beauty of dynamic sports, is that there is something that is always happening in the sport, right? There is something interesting which is always happening, because offense can turn into defense at any point in time, right? For example, if you look at cricket, right, it is defined what is offense and what is defense. Literally, the guy is like batting is offense, and like you're defending the runs, right? Literally, like, it's predefined. Whereas in sports like basketball and in football, possession can change like that, and completely tactics change, the way the position has to be. You know what I mean? How passes work, like, it completely changes. It's invisible to an eye who doesn't understand what's going on. But if you try and think about what's actually going on, what are the rules, why goals happen and when they happen, you'll start to appreciate a lot more, like, what is the beauty behind it, right? Like, because like being in a half, not being another half, like counter attacks, you've got like, proper plays and things like that. It's like, there is a lot of things actually going on in football. Like, you just don't have to look at the guy that has the ball, right? You have to look at who he could pass to, how the defense is falling back when the position changes. There's a lot of things going on. It's just because there are no rules to it, or there are no breaks. You don't understand when you're supposed to be focusing, because in a way you're supposed to be just focusing all the time, because it's interesting in that way. It's always interesting. That's what it really is. Once you start looking at it, you'll find it really beautiful. And I think once you actually start looking at football, you understand there is no other sport like football. Just watching that sport is just because you're always interested. Yeah? Unless if there is a situation where, like a team just cannot, teams just don't have that skill and they just don't do well. You know what I mean? They're it's like a goal basket where it's just like 4 or 5 goals one side and no goals the other side. At that point, there is no tactics a lot going on the pitch. So sometimes it doesn't make sense. But like, if there's like a proper, score line, there are a lot of things going on in the midfield, right? And this is the whole thing, because like, you need different sort of players at different places. Like, teams have this, midfielder problems, like attacker problems, left winger, right winger. We have like, defenders. They are specific sort of players, and then the manager has a lot of things going on it as well, where they tell them to play in this particular way, and how to coordinate as a team. Coordination is also a lot more involved in football than any other sport,
Right.
which is clearly like a very like good thing.
Well, it's
It's a
also
very
a
good
lot more
thing.
continuous, right? Because if you
Yes,
have
that's
that
what I'm
45
saying.
minutes,
Right?
so
It's dynamic sport. It's a dynamic sport. They don't have set pieces at all. It's
right.
completely dynamic.
That's actually something that I found really interesting with American football. That American football is very stop and go. Like you have this, you're
Exactly.
holding, then you throw the ball, and then you move, and then you move, 30 yards this way, 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, whatever.
Yeah.
You move in a
Yeah.
particular way. So it's a very stop and go sport. But still, it's really interesting because of how because of the things that the defending team does versus the attacking team does. There's a lot of things that you can clearly see happening, right?
Yeah, but that's
Because a
because you
lot of that.
understand, right? When you watch it, you understand it. Like, for example, when I first watched the American football game, I couldn't understand anything. I was like,
Sure.
what is going on? Why are, if the ball is flowing this way, why are random people fighting with random other people trying to block them? Why, like, I couldn't understand at all what was going on in American football. Like,
Yeah,
I just,
for sure.
but like, I
Yeah,
started watching the first few matches and it was really like interesting how the defense works. There's like an entire strategy that they've developed about how they fake the ball and just
yeah,
run
exactly.
past, right?
Oh, dude,
That's
it's
actually really
crazy. It's
interesting.
insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, of course, I'll come to these sports someday. I'll come to football and basketball because the thing is they're so popular, right? They're so freaking popular that you can't help but know a lot. So I've actually not. I think other than FIFA matches, which I used to watch when Dad used to watch back in 2012 and something, we used to have. I think I watched like a couple of matches back then, and then I think that I watched a couple of club matches. I don't even know if I do, but I've even without watching more than 10 matches, like I'm pretty sure I've not watched more than 10 matches of football, right? Because I've heard so much from friends. I know a lot. Like I don't know about teams at least, but I know about players a lot. Like, obviously you know about Messi and Ronaldo, but you also know about players like Neymar and Mbappe and all of those players.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about how good they are. Iniesta and everyone, like how some players were not the best in their team, but they together made what the team was and all of
Yes.
that.
No.
I've heard a
Exactly.
lot about that. So that's why I know that I'll stay in touch with football for sure. Like I'll
Yeah.
never go away from it, just like I'm not away from it right now. For
I
a
guess it's
person that
fine. Like,
hasn't.
we already don't have enough time. We're already watching Formula One quite properly. So I guess like for people like us that didn't even watch a single sport, I guess that's just too much time to invest anyways. But
I mean,
like,
sure, it depends. I mean, you have a couple of sports that you watch, and if it's that, so that there was one person that told me, I don't remember when that was, but someone told me that if you're watching more than one sport, you're you're more of a sports person than anyone else is. Like not a sports person like a sportsman and a sportswoman, but like a person that watches sports.
yeah.
Generally, I'm not a person that watches sports a lot,
Yeah.
but I've watched
Which has
more than
also
one sport.
been, yeah,
So
which actually has primarily been just because I couldn't find other things to watch. Like we've always been, I think at least me, I have always been watching TV shows quite a lot. At least in
right.
school, I had been always watching. But in college, I really couldn't find TV shows at all. Like I think I've watched like one or two TV shows a year, like the past 2 years.
Right.
Like which in a pandemic is kind of crazy. Like you
Yeah.
really don't have anything to do, and I couldn't find any good shows. The ones I found are really good, but like apart from that, it was just like I couldn't spend any time watching anything else. And I was just like, let's try and get into something interesting, right? And that's how
Yeah.
like it started with
I
Formula One. And
I remember
yeah,
this. Like I think you're one of the very few people that I have that had watched most of the TV shows before you went to college. Like
yeah. But see,
people
the thing, everybody has
generally
a TV
watch
show
TV
phase
shows
in
in
college.
college.
Everybody has the TV shows in college phase, bro. But I had that before. And I've already been sick of TV shows when I went to college. So I don't have anything to do. So now I have the sports phase in college, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
great, man. That's
Which is
amazing.
nice.
And I think you should keep following. It's already established that you're the brother in sports, and I'm not, like, for sure.
It is
But
surprising because I just started watching this season. I mean, this year. The fact that I said this season instead of this year is a lot. Gives a lot.
Yeah,
But then,
come on, yeah.
But
Exactly.
yeah, no. But I feel like I can do a lot more now than I used
Yeah,
to.
for sure. I mean, from
Especially for
a
tennis.
lot more than me, for sure. Like
Yeah.
definitely. But like, in general as well, I think you've been following what if even if you do tennis and football even that is, I think that's great, and I think that will also make you push into that direction of sports, even if you want to play sports out of
Yeah,
your
definitely.
free time.
But they're definitely been more interested in playing. Believe me, man.
Yeah.
It's made me feel not, you know, not like a person who just keeps sitting and just playing video games. The passion of playing video games is being slowly transported into a passion of playing actual games. You know what I mean? Like being interested in actually playing. Like I've been so interested in playing badminton. Since like Smith has also come around, right? And he's been here. So I've actually been playing a lot with him as well,
Right,
like
right,
on
sure.
the in our society, and it's just really good. Like I do want to start playing
Badminton is very underrated, man, because we play in our society we play Uppan like no one else does, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
It
But it's
used to
like
be
we
like a
also have a good
cutthroat.
revival,
It was a
man.
cutthroat sport almost. Like you would have
Dude, yeah.
this
Badminton we played
duel.
like almost like on a proper level, bro. And like also volleyball, right? We always had this one sport. Like even before when we actually got older, we thought we would stop playing, but then we picked up volleyball and then we started playing volleyball a lot
Yeah,
in
for
Uppana.
sure, for sure.
This is
Always.
surprising and it's nice. And I do want to keep doing that, especially now because I really don't do any other activity, man. I need to start. We need to, both of us, man. Both of us need to start going out and do some activities.
Yeah, telling a
And that's
nerd to go outside. Good luck with that. But yeah, that's definitely, I mean, something that I want to do for sure. I mean, that's interesting for sure. And yeah,
yeah.
let's see what happens, man. But this was really interesting, and let's keep talking about sports. I mean, I'm mostly gonna be listening, but it's really interesting to know real world events. The thing that you just mentioned, that we've been watching movies and TV shows a lot, but sports is just something that you just picked up. So
Exactly.
it's real world. It's real world. Like to TV shows, of course, acting and directing and script writing all exists, but sports is its own thing, and it's really interesting to
Completely.
watch it and see how people come up. And it's not just so. There's also I had someone tell me this, that they knew someone that only watched sports to watch the human side, the human story behind the sportsman, right? And that was really interesting to me, that that's why I think Netflix appealed to a lot of people as well, that it was the human story behind Formula One,
Yeah. So
than the
that's the
race
interesting thing. Do you
directors.
know this? They've been starting making a lot of sports documentaries. So also like with Formula One now, they'll also be making for tennis. They're gonna
Right.
be making a Drive to Survive style series for tennis as well,
Oh, really?
starting this
Wow.
very season. So next season you should expect a Netflix show about that. Actually,
Oh, holy
for
shit, that's
tennis.
amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy. And I think they're
yeah, but
also Netflix is also fighting for streaming rights, right?
yeah,
For
which
streaming.
is like so funny, man.
That's
Like
interesting. Like that's
yeah,
the one thing that
yeah,
Netflix has never done, right? They've never done
yeah, which
streaming.
is I was kind of surprised, man. Like I
No,
feel
because they didn't come from the streaming background. They came from the
I
blockbuster
got
Netflix,
it.
the CD rental business,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So for
They
them,
were from the
streaming was
rental
never a
business,
thing.
from the content rental business. They
Exactly.
were never from cable. Like they were never from the
Yeah,
TV side. They didn't come from the TV side. They came from the rental
exactly.
aspect.
That's why HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Hulu, all of these have always the companies that were a part of that made these streaming services, HBO Max, Paramount, and all of them have already been in streaming way before they came in the business.
True, true.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think for sure Netflix is the next step forward is streaming sports, and I think they've realized that and they're doing that for sure. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's really interesting
that's nice, man.
for sure.
Definitely.
I might watch the tennis show for sure. That sounds interesting for sure.
Yeah, maybe
And I
you
think
could.
tennis is
That
a
could
lot
get
more
you
of
in.
a person. Obviously, everyone has their own stories. Everyone has their human stories. But I think it'll be really interesting to see tennis stories, especially of
Yeah.
Federer,
Because in
Nadal,
Drive to Survive, they've
Djokovic.
actually done that a lot. Like instead of focusing on the technical aspects, they've just gone on the personal stories. Like the
Exactly.
episodes have just been about this guy's journey so far and then how he's performing right now, what happened in this race. Like they make stories about the players, like the racers. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? And
exactly.
I think it is actually really easy to do that in tennis actually right now because it's an
Yeah,
individual sport, right? So it's because through the championship, it's kind of easy to do.
sure, sure.
But believe me, it will be a depressing one because like the way 36-year-old players have been dominating the sport is like kind of crazy like, at this point,
Yeah, yeah, of course,
especially
of
for
course.
that.
And I think
But
as Neki JK also said that, right? What did he say? Okay, I completely forgot.
Naked
Anyway, but he talked about the high school movies, the movies that you got, the Disney Channel movies, high school. So
Oh
he talked about how a lot of the movies there were about sports. Actually, they were about football. A high school football player or a high school baseball player, and the
yeah,
human side behind that story.
definitely.
Those were the movies that people watch the most, at least here in the US, if not all around the
Yeah,
world. At least in the US, that was true. And that's, I think, something that Netflix has realized with this as well, with Drive to Survive. They just hit the nail there. That's why you have a
yeah,
lot more US watchers as well, even though Netflix is clearly global, and Netflix has so many country specials. Like, you have India Netflix specials, you have all of these
yeah,
specials,
completely. Yeah,
German as
exactly.
well, and all of these shows. Spain, that what show, Casa del Papel, what the castle, what's
Money heist, money
Money
heist.
Heist, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Money Heist, yeah. And then also Dark, the German show. So they have regional shows that are very, very popular. But still,
Right.
I think that's something that they've realized with their US audience that they can do with the global audience, is showing the human stories behind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way from people from, to convert people from just watching, TV shows to actually getting them into sports maybe. And that's actually good. Definitely been the thing for me. I've
Yeah, sure.
been gone from converted from a sitter to actually trying to do more things now, which is nice.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sounds good. Man. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, keep me updated. This is
definitely, bro.
definitely interesting.
It is my mission to make you watch football. I'm gonna get you into football, man.
I mean,
That's definitely gonna happen. Because
believe it or not,
because
I'm already in football. But I mean, yeah, because I
you're
know a
not in
lot.
football, bro.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
not as
you
much as
don't know.
actual football fans are. Obviously not.
Look,
Definitely.
you don't know anything about football. Okay?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, sure.
You don't know anything
Sure.
about football.
I
Yeah, you
know.
don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So, but definitely, bro. It's the like I could leave other sports, but I can't leave football anymore. Like I could leave Formula One as well, but
Oh,
like
wow.
football, I'm definitely
Okay.
gonna watch. Definitely, man. Bro, football has taken over everything. The previous season was crazy, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. Yeah,
All right,
we'll
man.
keep.
That's it, I guess.
Yeah, sounds
That's
good.
been quite a long one, I guess.
Really? Huh? I didn't see the time at all, actually. It's interesting again that we have two nerds talking about sport. That's probably going to be our longest episode. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good.
All right then.
All right.
We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Yeah. See you later. Bye.